Welcome to Fusing the Unfusable. Today we have another special guest. Mahmoud, my guest today is, he's built dozens and dozens of successful digital products and services that are used by millions of users across the Middle East and North Africa. He's a venture builder. He's an author. He recently he recently had a podcast and hosts interviewing unicorn founders and product leaders. He's an avid reader, self-developed, obsessed young man. I wish I had his knowledge and wisdom at his age. Welcome to the show, Mahmoud.
Karim, thank you so much. That's extremely generous. I'm glad we're finally able to do this.
As you know, we're a bit of a Web3 focused, digital focused podcast, but as an industry, we've often been accused of being self-absorbed, living in our own universe, and we know we have to improve our product's usability. The user experience is just not there. We're working hard on that, and so that not just crypto degens can use it, right? We want mass adoption. So let's dive into what you do best, which is building products, right? You've been building products for over a decade now, and you've interviewed tens of product leaders and interviewed and studied hundreds of successful tech companies. What did you learn from those companies, and how do they actually build successful products?
Oh wow, we're starting with the hard questions. So first, good products are not built by accidents. You can argue that penicillin was discovered by accidents, but all tech good products there's a certain principles that you need to have in place. The second myth that I saw is there's no right way to build a product. That's a myth. If any consultants tell you that there's use this framework, he just want to send you a book or want to sell you some consultancy. The third thing that I noticed is we have especially in the tech industry, we have the genius myth. One that comes to mind is Steve Jobs. So in our industry, we believe that Steve Jobs just had ideas and he told his team, hey, build me this. But it's not actually what happened. One of my early episodes, I hosted David Fradin. David Fradin have been building products for 55 years. He's one of the grandfathers of products. He was the product manager after Steve Jobs on the Apple products. He even managed Steve Wozniak for a while. And I asked him this question. I was like, dude, did you do user research? Do you ask customers, or did you do exactly what Steve Jobs did? And he was like, Mahmoud, this was all a myth that the PR team created. They want to create this Steve Jobs persona. Why? To compete with the likes of IBM at that time. So to go back to your questions, how to build a successful product? And if you can dissect this question even further, what does successful product mean? So first is a successful product attacks a short problem. What I mean short problem, we worked in startups where we do not actually tackle a short problem, and it's really drag to build or to sell. So you need to have a good problem that you're solving. Second one, it's not enough to solve the problem the customers have. You need to propel the business forward. This is revenue, this is market share, it depends. But basically there's...
And it's not always what the consumer wants, right? What does Henry Ford say? If I did what the consumer wanted, I would just build faster horses, right?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But they have common principles, and there's nothing I'm going to share today is something I discovered. All of them is something I observed across all of those companies. It's called the principle number one is product delivery, then product discovery, and then strategy. It's like a pyramid. I hope you have budget for this for a podcast. So it's like a pyramid shape, and we can dive deep into each of those.
So those are the steps, right?
Yes.
This is what I was going to ask you. If we get into the weeds and we start to so what do you mean by product delivery, and then what does that really entail, and what is product discovery, and then take us through the steps of building prototypes and an MVP. Just without going too much into detail, because we don't have that much time. We could take hours to discuss that, but give us some of the highlights and enlighten some of us from both Web3, right, who may not be part of that process, and also the general public.
So let's start with the product delivery. I used to work in one of the big banks here in the Middle East. I'm not going to say the name because they still have my money. We used to release once every year. Even sometimes I worked on a major release. It took us 1 year and 9 months to release. What happened when you release after 1 year and a half? There's a lot of changes. We released them all at once. So one, I slept at the bank for like 3 days. I mean, even the bank got us hotels, but we couldn't leave our desks. And we deliver awful experience for our users. The interface was completely different. Our other customers, they needed to be recertified using our product. So that's the worst way to build products. And I was talking to one of my friends at that time, and he was working one of the unicorn tech companies. And he was like, Mahmoud, yeah, we released every week or so. I was like, what do you mean every week? I was like, and then ask another one. He was like, Mahmoud, yeah, we release almost every day. I was like, dude, that's insane. How do you do it? That's a trick. In order to release so the best companies product that I noticed or I studied, they release once every 10 days at least. In order to do this, you need to invest something called an infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure? Something called CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous discovery. So let's say I'm a developer, I publish my code will be tested, and it will be merged to the main branch. In order to do that, you need to have developers that know what test-driven development. That's one. You need to have QA that know how to write automated tested. So you need to invest in front into those capabilities. What else? You need to have kind of Scrum or Agile. I hate to saying the word Agile because it's overused by so many people.
And misunderstood.
Oh, absolutely. Bro, you have no idea. There's a lot of companies that hire those Agile coaches and Scrum Masters. And again, I have the utmost respect for them. But if you're releasing once every quarter or once every 6 months, you're not doing Agile. Even if you're doing the Scrum ceremonies, stand up right. So these are the few steps that you need to do in order to do product delivery. If you're listeners, if you're a technical person and want to know a little bit more about this, one book I recommend called The Clean Code by some guy called Bob Martin, but we call him Uncle Bob. He was one of the early founders of Agile. He wrote the Agile Manifesto with a few of his friends. Another great book that I love is called Scrum, The Art of Doing the Twice of the Work, Half the Time. It's a great book, but if you don't have the other principle that we're going to talk about, you're going to be a release code machine, but not actually producing enough work. So that's delivery in a nutshell. We can jump on discovery.
To reiterate what you've said, there's so many frameworks, there's so many ways of doing things, and if you just copy paste them, you try to implement them as they are, it never works. You have to take context into account. You have to make sure you're adding value. You have to make sure you're building something somebody wants, right? Testing is key in code. Automated testing has advanced tremendously, and having the right QA team that does that is essential. And to be able to release continuously, right? There's nothing worse than releasing things with bugs. So just to reiterate that, it's complex. It depends on what you're building, and it depends on which, your business model, and there are many factors, right? And definitely the books you've shared, we're going to put them in the notes so that people can refer to them. Tell us a little bit more about how you call it discovery. Let's talk about that.
Just to end, one last point about product delivery, just to summarize in a nutshell, the best product companies, they release in a certain cadence, one every 5 days, once every 10 days, with small increments. That will make them so special. It's just a simple idea, but it's great to see it in practice. The second thing is product discovery.
Just to say something about that. This is why we notice that sometimes we're using an application and then suddenly there's something new, right? But it's so well designed that it's intuitively easy to use.
Absolutely, agree more. And we're gonna talk about discovery and how it relates to it. But let me tell you the story. So I worked with this guy. He was a PT, and he wanted to build a mobile app to sell to his client. It was a subscription service, and he wanted to make
a personal trainer. PT.
Yeah, personal trainer, and he want his audience to lose weight. So what he did, he created a mobile app that has the best 100 evidence-backed exercises, and he recorded all the exercises. He created all the plan. You entered your goals, your weight, your size, and it spit out a perfect plan for you. He launched it. He did some marketing. After a month, only he had like a huge, over 1 million on Instagram. By the end of the month, only 500, 400 was still using his app. So I was talking to him. I was trying to understand what exactly happened. And
That's a big flop. It's a big flop when you have 1 million followers on Instagram and you've designed the perfect product.
Yeah, and he paid
in his mind.
He paid around 300K. He was able to get some investment, 300K. He was like, dude, I know my domain. This is it. So we're trying to diagnose the problem, what really happened.
So now, actually, this goes against what you were saying earlier, which is it's not a science. There is a science, but now what did he do wrong?
So what did he do wrong? Building product is very unintuitive. Why? Because what he did is, this is the problem, this is a solution, I'm gonna apply it. What he should have done, and this is something I still struggle with, I always stop myself, we need to validate before we build. Nobody does that. Let's say you want to cook some pasta. You break the ingredients and you cook them. You don't approach it step by step and see how it evolves. So building product is very unintuitive. So I was like, dude, give me in touch with a few, like 10, 50 people of your audience. Let me ask them questions. So I asked him a few questions and we can discuss.
This is something he should have done before launching.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. But he assumed that he knows his audience. He was a personal trainer for the past like 15 years. And I asked a few questions and we can discuss about how to interview people later if you want. But one of the things that came up, that people know exactly what kind of exercise they want. But what they needed is accountability and community. They needed something to keep them accountable. And this is something that he should have done earlier. He should have asked if he created an MVP, a prototype. So MVP is a minimum viable product. Usually it's one of the best 3 features that you can do to launch such feature. Another thing, there's a prototype. The way I think about prototyping is the same way I think about writing. So writing is a good way to crystallize ideas that you have, in writing to see it in front of you. It's a way of thinking. Prototyping is the same thing. I love gathering requirement, and in the product community we call it product requirement document. You can gather requirement as much as you want, but you need to have something that you can see, something you can visualize.
Tangible, something tangible.
So that's why having a prototype in place really crystallize ideas.
It helps at all stages. It helps investors. It helps the board members. It helps. Prototype is key, and you see it come to life. Once you see it come to life, you start to look at emotion, and I think this is what he missed, right?
Yeah,
he got it's like he got the hard skills right, but he missed the soft skills.
Absolutely.
And understanding his customer. We talk about customer obsessed. We've had people on the podcast who come from TikTok, who come from consumer products, and the term that she used was customer obsessed. And being able to customer obsessed is not doing exactly what the customer asked for, but it's really thinking about the customer, thinking about their emotion, thinking about their needs from 360, right? And so that prototype and that MVP, how do you once you have that, how do you start to test it? What's the process?
So what we did with this client is we said, okay, we have the assumption. Our assumption is those clients need something to get them accountable. What is the best way to give them accountable? Hey, we're gonna build this. Like, no. Let's think something that we can do tonight. I was like, what do you mean by tonight?
Sorry to interrupt you. That assumption is the key, but did he make that assumption? Did he even think about it?
No. So that's the thing. Because I see a lot. It's something called the curse of knowledge. Because he's so knowledgeable about this and he knows his craft, sometimes you miss few things. And that's why I came someone who's like, I work out once in a while, but it was very apparent to me, but because I approached it as a beginner. So that's why I think product discovery is like the most fun part. I love it because it's a way. So for example, how are we going to test if people actually want a community? We created a WhatsApp group on the same night. We invited like 500 people and I was like, dude, let's see how people will be engaged on this group. And this will be a good prototype to test. And this is a question I get a lot, which is, how much should I pay for the MVP and how much should I pay for the prototype? And just insane. And the answer is, it depends. My product people understand this joke because it always depends. But there's Rule of thumb: the MVP should always cost one order of magnitude less than the finished product, and the prototype should always cost two order of magnitude than finished product. Let's put some numbers. Let's say the finished product mobile app will cost around 300k USD. The MVP should cost around 30, and the prototype should cost about $3,000. And now with a lot of no-code tools and low-code tools, even with $100 you can start. I mean, this is where you can use your imagination.
So you're saying it is cost effective to do prototyping and build MVPs.
Yes.
And it is essential to ensure that the investment is not wasted.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think this leads to the next question I wanted to ask you. And we work together in a venture building company, and we talk about risks. And what are some of the risks that investors, the venture builders, the board members, the startup founders, what are some of the risks that they should, other than the ones like we've highlighted just now, what are some of the risks that they should look out for to avoid?
Oh God, there's so many things that can go wrong in building a venture. So let me close down the aperture of this question. I'm not gonna say the risk regarding the venture because they're very vast. Let's discuss the risk that is only for the product.
From a product perspective. Sorry, from a product perspective, yes, definitely.
Ideolab. So Ideolab, they claim there's 3 risks. I love Marty Keegan say there's 4 risks, which are: 1, the value risk. The value risk: will people actually buy the product? It's very easy to show an app to someone and like, hey, do you like it? They say yes, but who would he actually put his money on the line and buy the product? So that's one, value risk. And this is the most important one. And you have no idea. I mean, I consult a few startups, and you have no idea how many startups that don't actually solve a problem.
This is a big risk, that you're actually building something.
Yes.
And we're in business world. So you're hoping that you're going to be able to recoup some of the cost or make money off it.
That's the second risk. But the first risk is people actually do need it. Do they want this product? Value risk. The second risk is the viability. So especially when I first started my career as a product manager, I was like, oh, I'm going to build products that actually help people. Yeah, but they don't actually make companies like this. Yes, you should build a product that help people. Yes, you should build a product that actually solve people problems, but they should drive the business forward somehow. So it's viability. And a lot of, even big startups right now, they're just burning VC money, and they don't even have a plan of when they're going to be profitable. That was good back in the old days, but now when money is running dry, I don't know how those startups will get and succeed in it.
Yeah, it's this flipping situation, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it in real estate and others where it doesn't matter what mortgage you get, you're going to sell the property because it's appreciating, right?
Absolutely.
And the same in ventures. And yeah, these are humbling times, right? When money's tight, you actually have to look at value, and you have to look at definitely being able to have a return on investment. So the question, that you were posing earlier, is somebody willing to pay for it? Oh, it's nice, but how much are you willing to pay for it? And then product. So how do you differentiate between that and viability? Can you explain it?
So value risk is people will want to pay for it, will actually solve the problem. There's a good rule of thumb: is your product 3 times better than their current product? Because there's a cost of leaving a product and going to your product. The second risk is, does this product, does it make money? Is it profitable? Does it increase market share? Does it move a needle in the business? Because you need to have those two, and those two are the main 2 risks. There's 2 other risks. One of them is feasibility risk. So feasibility, is it doable? Do we have the right talent at the moment? I was talking with a founder, and he was like, yeah, our idea is we want to build a large language model, and we want to train it, and we want to do A, B, and C. I was like, dude, first of all, you need to have a few millions, and you need to have access to NVIDIA chips, and you need to have a big swath of amount of data that you can train this large language model. Do you have that? That's feasibility risk, and usually you need either technical founder or CTO, head of engineers. Usually, this person who owns this feasibility risk.
Yeah, I mean that's key, right? People come, so you have founders that have ideas, and then you always have the technical people that are
Absolutely.
always there to bring them back down to earth, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to fly to Mars just yet. You know what's really interesting, what you've done today, and I'm not an expert in product by any means, is you've actually shined the light on product management, that it's not just about product. It's not just about building a product. It's first thinking, is this product worth building? Is it going to be profitable? Is it going to be desirable? And then how to make sure you do that by building an MVP, testing. So tell us a little bit about testing, because, we talked about releases, but going live with an MVP. So you have an MVP, you have an idea to build something, and you want to be able to come up with something gradual so that you make sure you're on the right track. How does that work?
I'm going to touch on it, but let me just continue my idea and discuss with you the last risk, the first risk. So the last risk, and this is especially important in B2B SaaS companies. Why? Because usually the buyer is very different from the user. Salesforce, for example, is usability risk. Because we have some software, they solve the problem, they're business viable, they're profitable, and they're feasible, man, but they're not usable at all. And that's the biggest problem. And usually you have someone like a designer, creative director, someone who's responsible of this experience. And this usability risk, you can mitigate it by testing. And I remember a few years ago, you were testing one of our product, and you've seen how we do our usability. So what we did is we wanted to build a mobile app for a fintech company. And we did not want to invest into building a workable code at that time. So we used Figma. We created a bunch of screens. We put some text on. It looks like prototype. And we came to Karim. He's like, Karim, okay, you want to do A, B, and C. This is the app. What should you do? And the hardest part for me, it was to keep my mouth shut and not say anything and just observe you use it. And you were asking me, hey, what does this button do? I was like, Karim, what do you think that this button should do? You would say, and I will take notes. So people, I hear this a lot, especially in startups, like, we don't have time to testing. Or in corporations, like, our executive team does not allow to testing. Like, testing is very simple. I mean, we even with a few Figma, but the best thing you can do, you can get a comparative app. That's what we did once. We went to a competitor, we took their app, it was like, hey, we show it to our user, like, hey, what do you think about this? This is how you can get input.
This is a topic that's very much close to my heart, and I call it change management or adoption, right? So you have, like you said, some amazing tools out there, some amazing software, and companies are willing to pay for it, but then they implement it,
yes,
and nobody uses it. And every implementation project should have at least 20% budget for change and adoption.
Yes.
There is a science around that. It's something that I've worked on and I enjoy. And my favorite thing is when somebody comes to me and say, I have a problem. I say, do you have a software? What do you have? Let's look at what you have already. And are you using it?
Yes.
Are you using it? Are you using it the right way? Is the team using it the right way?
Yes.
We talk about various tools, collaborative tools. I always catch myself saying, especially today, in this day and age, we're working remote teams and we're working, with various hours, right? Is working in real time on a platform, right? Not using it as a dumping ground or let me update. No. Try to use it. So adoption and usability for me is critical. From a product perspective, you're actually saying, what you're saying is, let's make sure that people are going to want to use it, right? But it will still need some support. It will still need, when it's implemented, it will still need some support. Unless it's a consumer product where there is no change management, there is no one. So when you have a big software like a Salesforce or an Oracle or an SAP kind of projects that I've worked on, or an IBM Doors platform, you have a team implementing, you have a team that's there supporting the users. But when you're creating that's for B2B, right? But when you're creating a software or an app for the public, there is no change management team, right? So that's where it's even more critical, right? To make sure that people are going to want to use it. They're going to want to put in the data to make it work, and they're going to want to use it the right way. We've seen how certain tools are so badly designed they're used the wrong way, right?
No, absolutely. And again, there is so many ways and cheap ways to test ideas and saves a lot of money. And I'm not going to go through all the prototyping ways in this podcast, but for your listeners, you can definitely check out Teresa Torres' book. I had her on my podcast. She had a book called Continuous Discovery. It is one of the best book that you can have on product discovery, how to test ideas, prototyping. She argued that you need to interview at least one client every week. And you need to test every week. That's an insane idea for some people. It's a beautiful book to read.
I can't wait to get those books and to share them with the audience, Mahmoud. We're at the end, towards the end. We look forward to having you on the podcast again to talk about product. We'll also share the link to your podcast as well, so that people can follow you, and if they need your expertise around product management, they'll know where to reach you, Mahmoud. It's been great. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Karim, it's been fun. It's great to have you here.